Hello, welcome to episode number 156 of Decentralized Revolution. Of course, as you know, it's the podcast of the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus and Mises PAC. I'm Aaron Harris. I'm your host. Nate Thurston couldn't make it this week. He's got some real life stuff that kind of cropped up, but that's okay. That's why we have co-hosts now. So when one of us has a thing, the other one's here, hopefully. But we have someone who I wasn't aware of until very recently. I was aware of some of the work he was doing through Angela and through something that the Mises Caucus has lended a little bit of help to. But I'll let him sort of introduce himself. It's Rafael Yakobi of the Crypto Lawyers. So people can probably guess a little bit of what that is, but why don't you tell people who you are and what you do?
Sure. And, nice to meet you, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks.
So I'm an attorney. I've worked exclusively in the crypto Bitcoin world for about 7, maybe 8 years now. And I work with a lot of startup companies and business people and developers, investors, on a variety of issues in the crypto space. The main one that's probably relevant for today's conversation is a lot of regulatory work, which means dealing with the SEC or the CFTC or the DOJ.
Yep. And obviously, one of the things that the Mises Caucus played a not insignificant, we weren't the main factor, but we were a factor. Of course, Angela getting some of the attention on the Ross Ulbricht case at the very end, and literally sitting down with President Trump and getting his promise, which he came through on. I was actually kind of like, is he going to do it? Because, sometimes people twist his arm and he kind of listens to the last person who's in the room or whatever. I think that there was
a little sweat, right?
Yeah.
After he said day one, and then it was day one, and we're like, you said day one.
I remember thinking that, and I remember hearing some of the stories about him being inclined to maybe pardon Ross and Ed Snowden and Julian Assange back in the first term. And I think it's Scott Horton tells a story about, Mitch McConnell or somebody from the Senate, like, hey, you can't do this. So that was kind of the top line thing in this sort of sphere. Of course, there's Roger Ver, Ian Freeman, who we've talked about, but tell me about, you represent the Samourai Wallet guys. We just had Keone Rodriguez on a private donor call for Mises PAC donors about 3 weeks ago. He joined us on there to kind of update things. And for a lot of people, hold on. I think
I lost you there for a second.
I bumped my mic and unplugged it. Some people do know who about the Samourai Wallet case. Some people don't. So fill us in on that, how you got involved and where things are right now.
Sure. So I represent Keone Rodriguez, who's one of the co-founders of Samourai Wallet. And so just big picture context, Samourai Wallet was a software application, basically primarily a phone application that people would use as a Bitcoin wallet. And so I'm guessing most of your audience is relatively Bitcoin savvy, but you download the Bitcoin wallet on your phone. It allows you to create your own private keys and accept Bitcoin, receive and send Bitcoin. And in particular, Samourai Wallet, the application, had some privacy enhancing features because Bitcoin is a public blockchain. And so, under normal operational use, if somebody sends you Bitcoin, they can see how much you might have at that address. They can see where you send it to. They don't know who you're sending it to necessarily, but they can see the addresses that they go to. And then there are many companies that operate kind of like private surveillance, apparatuses of the government that are constantly surveilling everyone's activity all the time and feeding that into who even knows where, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Various different databases for private and public purposes, right? So they built this Bitcoin wallet that had privacy features to, make Bitcoin more usable like electronic cash, which is what it's intended to be. in addition to being obviously a store of value and typical Bitcoin maxi talking points.
Absolutely.
So they were operating for a number of years, and then I believe it was in April of 2024 they were raided by the FBI with SWAT team, in the middle of the night or 5 a.m, and charged with a number of charges, which I can go into.
Well, let me stop you there and ask a quick
Sure.
question. So they were raided right off the bat. Were they ever approached and like, hey, we have questions. We're from this department. We would like to talk to you. Was there any of that before a physical raid on their?
There was none of that.
Okay. See,
so Keone was in Pennsylvania. Bill, his co-founder, was in Portugal, and they were raided at approximately the same time.
Oh, wow.
In both places.
Okay.
And these things are kind of frequently done by the FBI and DOJ, often when it's not really needed, just for the effect on the person being raided, or other people that they might want to make an impression on.
I suppose
they want to make an impression on.
I suppose you could make a case that like, oh, if we tip them off, then they'll like delete stuff or whatever. But again, it just goes to show you that like the sort of Fourth Amendment and other like civil libertarian concerns are so far down on the list that because it's a real thing. I mean, like if you look at I always go back to Waco, right? Like I don't know if I was old enough to remember that happen, and like it came out even during the siege that like, oh yeah, he was in town all the time. They could have arrested him at any time.
Right. Or he went on like a jog every morning or something.
Yeah.
I honestly read about it again recently, and I've watched some documentaries about it, and I just went down a little rabbit hole on it again and was like re-traumatized by what an injustice it was.
And Scott Horton of the Libertarian Institute did like a huge long podcast series about it. And I thought I knew a lot, but like so much came out in that. But like, I think it's documented they did that because they really wanted to make a splash in advance of their appropriations hearing, and also to have a chilling effect on, oh well, any of these other kook cults or whatever out there. Yeah, so they don't care that like people can actually get killed, and even like anybody showing up at an apartment or a house in the middle of the night, there's a chance that they get the wrong door. There's a chance that weird stuff happens. So that in order to make
those things have happened.
Those things happen every single day or every single week across the United States. And so to make their case against people who want financial privacy, they're willing to risk their own lives and the lives of like other innocent people to do that, which is bonkers. So, okay. So they,
and like the rationale that people could destroy things. I mean, I guess you could say that about anyone who is being investigated for any crime. Like then you'd have to send the SWAT team in for everyone, because they theoretically, escape on a helicopter or something.
Yeah.
Even if they don't own one.
Right.
So they were charged with several charges, including conspiracy to do money laundering, and then, Section 1960, which is failure to register as a money services business, and then another subsection of 1960, which is, knowledge that illicit funds are traveling through your financial institution.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And to answer your question, I'm not aware that they were ever contacted by anyone in advance of this, right? The government could have, sent a subpoena and said, hey, we're investigating what you're doing. We want to make sure it's lawful. None of that happened.
Yeah.
And this was the Southern District of New York, or, often referred to as the Sovereign District of New York, because they kind of, as you'll see as we get deeper into the story, they kind of do their own thing, meaning even if, Trump says that the war on crypto is over, they're kind of like, holdouts from World War II who like don't want to accept that the war is over. They want to keep the war on crypto going.
Is this the U.S. attorney and the underlings in the U.S. attorney's office there?
Yeah. I mean, the offices themselves have their own kind of like organizational momentum,
right?
That even a change in the U.S. attorney is challenging to get a change in terms of how things actually operate.
Yep.
you might have seen after Trump came into power that there actually was a change, a meaningful change in terms of crypto prosecutions outside of the DOJ, right? So with the SEC, they just pretty much put a stop to it, and the same thing with the CFTC. But the DOJ is its own animal that is not easy to slow down, basically.
Yep. Okay, so this happens, no warning, they get charged. Pick us up there.
Sure. So I'll talk about the most significant charge is the conspiracy to do money laundering, and it's significant because it has a much higher penalty than the other charges. The other charges had, a statutory maximum of 5 years, and the money laundering charge has a maximum of 20 years. It's much more severe.
Yeah.
The government didn't accuse either of them or anyone that worked for them of ever laundering any money at all. The argument from the government is that somebody downloaded your software application, and then they used features in it, and they used features in the application to do what the government believes is money laundering.
Right.
And it's very significant in terms of extending liability to developers of software for what third parties do with the software. I mean, you can immediately think of analogies that would lead to absurd results, right? Yeah. Like people share, inappropriate images of children on Facebook Messenger, and then they charge Mark Zuckerberg with child pornography, right? Of course, that would make no sense. It's not him, right? Just because he's the guy who runs the company that makes software that other people use to do basic things like send messages.
But even just take it out off of the internet, and it's like, oh, well, do we go after Samsonite because people put a suitcase full of cash to do a drug deal in 1982? It's just the logic doesn't. It's the same argument when people say, oh, well, Bitcoin is used for illicit activities. I'm like, well, what about the dollars in your pocket? Like it's neutral. It's just a tool, but
right. The internet is used for illicit activity. I mean, I don't want to give our adversaries any ideas that they should shut down the internet and take away physical cash and I don't know, put speed limiters on all of our cars, right? I mean, the list is endless. There's a lot of things that you could do if you didn't care about letting people have any kind of freedom, right? To try to get better outcomes. We could have people, coming out of their house to do jumping jacks every morning, right? To just increase, the health of the people in the country, right?
Was there, how many other cases? Like I wonder sometimes, given the fact that the crypto thing has been developing, what Bitcoin kind of was created or kind of came to light in 2013. So we're talking 10, 12 years. And I may be off on my conception of this, but is there any sense that they're maybe just picking different people just to, I mean, maybe said it earlier, hey, let's just pick 3 or 4 companies and go after them just to send a message? Or was there a particular reason that Samourai was particularly more popular or innovative or something? Any reason why them?
So we don't know for sure because, how the government deliberates about who it charges is, typically privileged and not something that you can actually get access to. Right. This is their own internal deliberation. But what it seems like in particular with Samourai is that they were critical of the US government, or maybe critical of the governments of the world in general. And so there's absolutely a free speech angle here, right? They are critical of the government, and the government really does not like that. And so, for most people, they can go on the internet and they can criticize the government, and for most people, they can get away with it. But if you're doing anything that is not, in every way buttoned up and predictable, I mean, even if you are, right, the government can, if they want to go after you, they'll just go after you for something, right? If they want to find a crime in something that you've done at some point in your life, they can find it. So, in my view, they are guilty of mean tweets. And it's not, they've always had kind of a controversial angle to their marketing. and they were openly critical of the government. And I think that unfortunately played a role.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing they don't live in Britain, right? The mean tweets. I think they might bring back the death penalty over there for.
Yeah. I'm also glad I don't live in Britain. Honestly, I don't even want to take a layover there.
Yeah.
I don't think I will ever again.
I actually thought that. Like as you can probably tell by looking at me, I'm 3/4 English and 1/4 Scottish, and we went there on our honeymoon. We did Europe and then Scotland and then England. And I was just like, and it was during Brexit. And I remember having conversations with people about Brexit and Trump and telling people that Trump was going to win, and people didn't believe me. And like, I was like, I wonder if I'm going to, like, now some of those things I said just in casual conversation, I'm sure would get me in trouble. And I wonder if they do. It's crazy that you have to think about this, but like, would they run my social media just somehow looking at the manifest of who's coming in and all that?
I'm sure they'd love to if given the opportunity. I don't think Trump would allow that.
Yeah.
Right. If the UK started like abducting American citizens on vacation.
Yeah, that I don't know, the way things, it's so this year, it's hard to believe that the second Trump term isn't even a year old yet. There's just been such whiplash of like really great things happening and really weird things happening. And
he's a different, I think he is a different man than the first time he was president. I mean, it certainly has not been perfect, but I had this feeling in like a year before the election that like Bitcoin in particular would start appealing to Trump, and then that ended up happening, but way more than I expected. I just thought, man, he's got to have been debanked and censored and deplatformed, right? Like the crypto Bitcoin message should be perfectly appealing to him.
Yeah.
And then, it really it ended up happening.
So let's get back to the Samurai case. So like this happens starts during the Biden administration. And then, so yeah, I don't know how much detail you want to go into, like whatever the most important things are to get us to where the case is now. And did things happen with the change in administrations?
Like, yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So they were initially charged. I talked about the more significant charge, which was the money laundering. And that's just kind of bad public policy and the government trying to stretch the law to fit the facts because they want to go after these guys. And so they kind of come up with a rationalization for doing that. The other charge, which is failing to register as a money services business and carries a 5-year statutory maximum, was even more unjustified, because it could be a matter of opinion. Maybe they did something that nobody knew about and they actually did facilitate money laundering, which I don't think that they ever did, but it could be possible, right? But the other charge was for failing to register as a money services business. And a money services business, or MSB, is a type of financial institution. And at a base level, in order to be a financial institution under the statute and under FinCEN's guidance, you have to accept and transmit money. You have to take custody of other people's money.
So it's like Western Union, the wire service type thing.
That's the quintessential example of money services business, right?
Okay.
That's not a bank, right?
Yep.
So these are non-bank, other types of financial services. So their application didn't allow, they didn't take custody of anybody's money. And FinCEN, to their credit, had relatively clear guidance about how does the Bank Secrecy Act apply to, Bitcoin companies and software in the Bitcoin world. And FinCEN was pretty clear that if you don't take custody, you're not a money services business. And it even had a section applying that logic to what they called anonymizing service providers, which are basically privacy-focused Bitcoin wallets like Samourai. I'm sure that they knew what Samourai was and other similar products when they wrote this guidance. So they studied these things. They wrote the guidance that said that these kinds of businesses are not money services businesses. And then the DOJ charges them with failing to register as a money services business. And it came out in the court case that the DOJ had reached out to FinCEN to ask them what they thought about these guys and did they think they were a money services business. And FinCEN responded to them and said, no, we don't think that they are.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got this like major problem where the DOJ is taking a contradictory position to FinCEN, and you know, the statute says you need to accept and transmit money. FinCEN interprets the statute for you and says this is how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And then the DOJ can just show up out of the blue, with the SWAT team and prosecute you anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So those are the charges. How did the case proceed?
Sure. So initially it was assigned to Judge Berman in the Southern District of New York. And, you know, I was cautiously optimistic about him. He's not a former prosecutor like many of them are. I think he was in private practice first and then became a judge. And so a lot of, I think 25 to 50% of all this, you know, federal court judges are former prosecutors.
Yeah.
He was on the case and then he got switched off the case kind of randomly. He's very old. A lot of them are old. And so for some bureaucratic reason, he got switched off the case and replaced with Judge Denise Coate. And if I recall correctly, she was like the chief prosecutor in the Southern District of New York, which is the same office that is prosecuting these guys now. Right.
Okay.
And so she was like the lead prosecutor there. And now she's a judge. And it's a little hard for me to understand how it's not a conflict of interest for, like, you know, the former chief prosecutor to be presiding over a case where it's their office that they actually worked for, right?
Right. So a lot of her coworkers and proteges and things like that are no doubt
people that worked for her, and there are a lot of true believers there.
Yep.
Anyway, she seemed pretty hostile and ended up being quite hostile through the rest of the case, starting with his defense, you know, trial lawyer did a motion to dismiss the indictment, and she denied the motion to dismiss, which is fine. Judges do that. But she denied it with a stamp, meaning she just stamped it denied. And that's not typical. Okay. What's typical is that the judge will write out their analysis in their order, explaining why they denied the motion to dismiss, and then you can appeal that.
Yeah.
Right. And so you could appeal it, and you could even try to go for an interlocutory appeal where you appeal and the case gets put on hold while the Second Circuit looks at this. And these are, you know, kind of nuanced, complicated, novel issues that the Second Circuit is probably pretty well equipped to handle, right? They deal with all these complicated financial cases. So she denies the motion to dismiss without any kind of an order, which makes it harder. There's no record to appeal. You just have to appeal and say she's wrong. But because she didn't show her reasoning, you can't even point out exactly why she's wrong, even though we could come up with a bunch of ideas about why we think she came to this conclusion.
Right.
So that was kind of a suspicious move that is quite unfair to someone who's facing a criminal prosecution.
Yeah.
The next thing that happened is there were industry organizations and public policy groups that wanted to file amicus briefs in this case, and they prepared them. And they submitted their requests to the court to be able to submit these amicus briefs for the court to consider. And she denied that also, meaning she wouldn't even allow them to submit their amicus briefs. So like she could allow them to submit them and then just ignore them and deny the thing anyway.
Right.
But she said, I don't even want to see them.
Yeah. How often does that happen? I've never heard of
Almost
that.
Never.
Okay. Cause I'm not a lawyer, but I've got degrees in political science and journalism, and I've covered courts and taken con law classes, and I've never heard that.
Yeah. I mean, the law is like, in general, amicus briefs should be allowed unless there's a good reason not to.
Yeah. The
good reason would be like, you know, it's kind of nonsense written in crayon or something, right? It's not a real amicus brief, but these were real.
But like, this is supposed to be a a free nation and a nation of laws that, and so people are supposed to have their say. And okay,
Yeah.
at least keep up the pretense. Yeah, don't. I'm not saying you have to read all this stuff, but to say they can't even.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
because the thing
strange.
is, it would be a little maybe cathartic for the defendants to say, all right, well, she denied our motion to dismiss, but at least we got to publish these amicus briefs that laid out our arguments in addition to our own argument that we made, right? Other people came to our defense. They helped make the arguments for us. They took different angles, right? And at least it would feel like there was a process, right? So she denied those too. And then before the case went to trial, the DOJ offered a plea deal to the defendants, and they accepted it. And so the outcome of the plea deal was the government dropped the conspiracy to do money laundering charge completely. And that's very important because that's the 20-year charge.
Yep.
And the only charge that they left was not even the failure to register as a money services business, but the 1960 B1C charge, which is knowledge that illicit funds are flowing through your financial institution.
Mm-hmm.
I can just break that down very quickly because it's like, most people, it may not be obvious what that means, but money laundering is like actively facilitating the money laundering, right?
Yep.
And so this is a lesser charge of that, where you just know that illicit funds are going through your financial institution. But the problem, like we already spoke about, is that it's not a financial institution.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so I imagine from their perspective, pleading guilty to one charge that has a maximum sentence of 5 years is much better than going up against the DOJ and going to trial with a judge like that.
Yeah.
Because the deck is kind of stacked. And I know from watching criminal trials in the Southern District of New York that the jury kind of looks at you and then they listen to what the government says and they're like, I don't know, he looks kind of guilty.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how it goes. Maybe a different jury in a different place would be different, but I know from watching other cases where the jury instructions were so complicated and technical that I know that like lawyers could not agree on what the outcome should have been in the case. And the jury was like, nope, he's guilty.
Yeah. It happens. And like the whole tactic of like overcharging, it happens. Like I remember one case when I was a reporter, this kid, it was he was doing something he shouldn't have been doing, like looking in a window, trying to rob the place or whatever. But like he didn't actually get to rob the place. The cops came up on him. They accosted him. He kind of, he bucked and he like spit at one of the cops and like kind of took a swing at one of them. And they charged him with something that could have been like 10 years. And so he pleaded down to something else. But like, so they did that because they didn't want to have to like prove that, the lesser charge of like trespassing and whatever. So that's the way it works. And yeah, I almost wish I could somehow, you remember civics class in like 7th grade or whatever, when they explain to you how this stuff works, but then the real world, it's like this happens all the time. And very seldom do cases actually go to court where the defendant, presuming the defendant could even afford it half the time, so, okay. So that's what you're saying. That's what happened here. Big charge. They're not guilty of any of these things, but they pleaded guilty. Correct me if I'm misinterpreting, but they pleaded guilty because they didn't want to take the chances in what sounded like a very hostile courtroom.
Yeah. I mean, look, no matter how good your case is, maybe if your defense is perfect and incredible, you might have a 50% chance. Or something like that. And so you're just getting a discount. You're just getting a discount to market. Right. If the max you could get is 5 years, you're getting a big discount. To like, bet 25 years, right? Or something like that.
And so when did they and did Keone and Bill at the same time accept the same things, I guess, or?
Yes. So the deal with both of them, my understanding is that it had a very short expiration period. Meaning they had just a very short time to to accept or not accept a deal. And it kind of coincided with another similar case, the Tornado Cash case, which has going at around the same time, a little ahead of schedule of Samourai Wallet.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, that one did go to trial, and there's some overlap in terms of the facts, except it's a protocol built on Ethereum that allows privacy on Ethereum, right? And so there, they were found not guilty of the money laundering charge, but they were found guilty of the 1960 B1C charge, the same one that these guys pled guilty to. So perhaps the outcome is the same.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There is one other fact that I guess I skipped over, but I can come back to it now, which is that after Trump got elected, the assistant U.S. attorney Todd Blanche released a memo directing the DOJ to reprioritize how it deals with crypto, right? The same way that they did this reprioritization with the SEC and the CFTC. And this is now referred to as the Blanche memo. And so the memo basically said, we need to stop prosecuting developers of software tools. We need to go after real criminals and focus on, compensating victims of crimes and not go after people who are developing businesses and tools.
Yeah.
And so the government, the way the government should have responded to that was just dropping the case. Or if they really wanted to save face, giving them like a really sweetheart deal.
Yeah.
Right. And they could say, okay, we finished our case. We got our thing. They pled guilty to something and everyone could just walk away. But all they ended up doing is dropping the failure to register charge, but keeping the one that they ended up pleading guilty to, which is the knowledge of illicit funds going through your financial institution. So they just barely moved the needle in terms of complying with what was effectively Trump's directive to stop wasting your time with these kinds of cases.
Okay. So Trump basically said, okay, so basically they kind of ignored the spirit of what the policy is, continuing to pursue this.
Yeah.
They pleaded. And so if I'm reading, so I'm going to put a URL up on the screen. Tell me if it's right before is that still relevant?
I believe so. Yes.
So that's to sign petitions in support of Bill and Keone. It's Bill, for those of you who are not watching this, because I never watch podcasts. I only listen to them. So Bill and Keone, BILLandKeonne.org to sign petitions and support. And so basically the petition is asking for
a pardon.
So pardon from Trump, which there's precedent that he will possibly consider things like this. And so it almost seems like, do we know if anybody has actually sat down? Do we know he knows about this case?
I don't know, but it's possible that other people know.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that, given what's gone on, that if he, you got to imagine what getting access to a president is like, and getting something on a president's agenda sheet or notepad. So
I have to imagine that he cannot make every single decision himself. It's just not possible. And so you have to work with people that you trust, that you think will make good decisions. And maybe they come to you and they tell you 10 different things they're doing, and you're like, all right, sounds good. Keep up the good work. I don't know. I imagine that's what he says to people, right? They tell him what's going on. He says, okay, right? And every once in a while, he'll have an opinion about how things should actually go. Maybe Ross was an exception to that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the point of petitions and things like this, is to maybe just kick up enough dust that somebody notices and or that it, gets pushed to the top of the pile. So yeah, we'll, I'll send out an email from the caucus email list about this episode to remind, to tell people that it happened, and tell them to tune in, and I'll include the link and why people should do that and everything. So
I can tell you the final segment of the story, what happened after the plea deal.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So after the plea deal, there's a sentencing hearing, and as part of the plea deal, the government requires them to forfeit something like $7 million worth of Bitcoin. And then they go to the sentencing hearing. And at least in Keonu's example, the judge gives him the maximum sentence that she's permitted to under the law, right? Which is 5 years, despite the fact that I think he's never been arrested or committed any kind of a crime before, and he's not really a danger to the community whatsoever. Right. And I wasn't in the room at the time, but the people that were in the room said that if she had the option to do more, she would have done more.
Wow.
So this is like a person who really is not sympathetic to the cause of economic freedom or financial privacy or good public policy whatsoever, it appears.
Yeah.
Basically just a Fed.
Yep. Yeah, she's 80 years old. She's been in the game for a while, and if people ask someone like that for a favor, then people tend to you don't get that far in your career by being hard to deal with among other bureaucrats and judges and things like that. So okay, so that's, man, yeah, that just makes you want to hate the government all that much more. Every day I think, oh, well, maybe it's not so bad. And then I hear things like this and I just get recharged as to why I'm involved in this.
Well, I want to believe that they can change. I mean, okay, they could change. That has to be true.
Yeah.
I do believe that. But, it's like the system, man.
Yeah.
I honestly, I would love if Bitcoin made the government obsolete, defunded the government and made it obsolete. That would be, or at least diminished it into a role that makes more sense. I guess libertarians can spend quite a bit of time arguing about what that role should be. As I'm aware.
Well, yeah, libertarians are arguing over things. Wow, but no,
they mostly agree on.
No, but there's been a debate here lately about practicality and how do you get from there to here or from here to there or whatever. But like one, I think major factor in that is I haven't seen, and this is my pitch, and obviously I'm biased as vice chair of the Mises Caucus, like we're really trying to get the Bitcoin people, the high level people, on down to the small fish who, a guy like me with, not a lot of Bitcoin, but enough that I, have a vested interest in what's going on. But like we have this potentially revolutionary movement that has so much potential, has already achieved a lot. The concept has been proven, and it's aside from politics, but yet politics is still interested in it and can and does affect that. So at some point, and again, for somebody who came at this from the political side of things and not the Bitcoin side of things, I don't know how the Bitcoin first people think about it. But at some point, I would think they would want to have some say in the political process, some voice, some structure through which they could manifest their will in public policy debates. And that our argument is that's what the Libertarian Party should be doing. That's what the Mises Caucus is trying to do. We have a lot of dead weight in the Libertarian Party who wants to play Dungeons and Dragons all the time. And every time I make that joke, I apologize to cool people who actually play Dungeons and Dragons. But like, they're not serious about actually changing things. They want to debate, where here we have like the Maha movement, the Bitcoin movement, homeschoolers, food freedom people who like, you need to get involved, and there is a vessel you can use for political change. Will it work? Will everything be solved overnight if you get involved? No. But especially the Bitcoin people, given the amount of money and what's at stake and the power of Bitcoin, I can't help but wonder if like the Libertarian Party was basically a vehicle for the Bitcoin philosophy, what we could do together. So I mean, that's my plea. I don't know what you think about that. Yeah.
Well, okay, so I was a libertarian first before I was interested in Bitcoin, and then I thought of Bitcoin as like a technical solution to this political problem. The problem being the libertarians just lose all the time, and at least as long as I was paying attention. But what you've seen is that the Bitcoin crypto community, okay, the Bitcoin crypto industry at large, maybe not the whole community, but the industry had a major impact on the last election, right? Just spontaneously as a result of the industry growing and there being all this capital in the crypto world. Like, as far as I know, all of the senators or Congress people that were supported by the major crypto packs, all of them won, every single one of them. And so now we've potentially crossed the Rubicon for now. Maybe we could cross back again, where the politicians are like, we got to make the Bitcoin people happy because they have a lot of money. Right. And now you have all these big financial institutions that are integrating with Bitcoin, and now they have a vested interest too. Like, I'm sure that something could go wrong, but things are going in generally the right direction. Where now it's like the upside for being opposing Bitcoin is limited, and the downside, the downside is gigantic, right? If your opponents are going to get tons of Bitcoin donations and you're going to get nothing.
And the other thing, again, that I think some of the opponents of the Mises Caucus and the Libertarian Party are like, oh, what? Are we the Free Ross Party? Like, is that all we're doing is getting prisoner? Well, first of all, even if it's just one guy, like, I still think it's pretty cool that we got one guy out of a life sentence for doing nothing wrong. Even if that's still pretty awesome. But
I agree.
Like the fact that in this election of 2024, where the margin was so small that both parties were looking for little slivers of votes. And I always use the Republicans went to the Amish in Pennsylvania and got a few hundred of those people to vote for the first time because they knew. And so who would have thought that Amish would have some sort of power over national political elections, but they did. And they came to the libertarians. I don't know how many consider themselves libertarians who vote, whether it's a couple 100,000 or a couple million, I don't know. But the Republican Party listened. They sat down, literally, he sat down with Angela McArdle. I think she went to Mar-a-Lago, right? Like, so they listened and wanted to hear what we had to say. And one of the things on the list was Ross. And it came, and we extracted a promise from him in public, and it happened. So imagine, okay, Trump is gone this time. The election is going to happen. It's going to be close. So whether it's Vance, Ramaswamy, whoever, those people are going to need every vote they can get. And just imagine if we had a Bitcoiner at the head of the libertarian ticket in 2028, like a Bitcoin Maha fusion ticket, and it's a close election, and we could sit there and say, okay, both parties, probably the Republicans are the only people who are going to listen to us. But if we said to the Republicans, okay, we're either going to spoil this thing and make you lose 3 states because we have some awesome candidate who knows Bitcoin and Maha and can turn those votes, or you promise us X, Y, and Z. And this time the demand is bigger. This time is not just, God forbid, Keone and Bill are in prison still at this point, but they would be on the list. But okay, let's actually make some real regulatory reforms that make Bitcoin that much easier to adopt. Let's do something to let's audit the Fed. Let's just start there, right? Like if we had some like really huge substantive things and we said, okay, we'll stay in the race and spoil this, or we'll stand by if you promise to do these things.
No more income taxes.
Yeah, well, that's for 2032, right?
Trump's already talking about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's actually a side debate. But if a low flat tariff versus an income tax, I would probably take the tariff.
I agree.
But that's the point: is to have a like a little lever that we can stick in the gears here and get what we want. And so the devil's advocate says, well, he'll promise you anything. Vance will promise anything. And okay, well, if Vance promises to audit the Fed, release all the whatever Bitcoin prisoners are left, abolish the ATF, whatever else we put on our 5-point list, something maybe getting rid of more vaccine mandates and stuff like that. Okay, if he goes back on those things, guess what? We won't listen next time, and we'll run that same ticket 4 years later, or we'll run that same candidate in a key Senate race and spoil that election.
Yeah.
So that's the whole point. We're not going to convince 33% of the electorate in the next 3 years to vote Libertarian and put Justin Amash as president. It's not going to happen. We have a little bit of leverage and we can use it. And to me, the key is the Bitcoin and the Maha people, getting them involved so we can we tried the strategy in a very small way and it worked. And if it can get bigger next time, I think we can really, really, truly move mountains.
Mm-hmm. I'm persuaded, and I think it's a great plan. I mean, I remember watching the election results in 2020 when Trump lost,
mm-hmm.
and looking at the margins, and the margins were all Libertarian vote. Like if the Libertarians voted for Trump, he would have won then, right? And so the thing is, I don't think there was any deal being made at that point. The Libertarians were just like sticking it to the man, which I was a little annoyed about right at the time.
Yeah,
because I would have preferred a second term, for Trump than Biden.
Yeah, and that's the point. And Rich he's also here in Tennessee, so I'm putting his comment up there. He says he loves the plan, so
we have the Rich endorsement.
I have Rich's endorsement. He has mine as well. Rich and the Tennessee guys are just so great. I'm not that involved in the state party stuff because I'm busy with life and with this and everything. But the Tennessee party, we're one of the best in the country, and they get this strategy too. They've been doing it some local and statewide races here in Tennessee. But you said, okay, that was a strategy in the past, is like, oh, let's just, I remember even like well before the Mises Caucus was formed and I was involved with the LP in Ohio, and I even kind of bought into some of that too. It's like, oh, we covered the spread. And so now people are mad at us. But yeah, it's kind of nice to screw somebody's plans up if they're a bad statist, and both of them usually are. But like, okay, that doesn't accomplish much, and it makes people who might listen to our message mad at us.
I mean, we got like the COVID lockdowns and the vaccines.
Yeah. Well, there's that. There's that. And I wonder, that's a good counterfactual. Like, what if Trump would have won the second time?
I mean, I know he's a better man now than he was then, right? Yeah. Then it's just another term. I was always going to win. There was nothing to worry about, right? Instead of 4 years of being like prosecuted and excommunicated and debanked, right? To like, he's like a dissident, right? He's like a man, got to experience things that regular people might experience if they were some kind of political opponent, which is a very, very important transformation to go through. So maybe he's probably better now than he would have been in a second term, I think. A second back-to-back term.
I definitely think so. And I think there's, again, I said earlier with the whiplash, which things, early days, things seemed really awesome. And then we've taken a lot of, I think, detours lately. But again, it's better than if we would have had Kamala and the other guy, the Minnesota guy in there. It would be a lot worse. And things can always get worse. But the point is like, and I actually didn't vote for Trump any of the 3 times because my reservations, and the third time I had moved here to Tennessee, and the vote doesn't matter. So if it was close, I might have actually gone out and voted for him. But the point is not because we love Trump. It's because he will challenge the deep state on a few things. He occasionally gets things right where the other people, they never get anything right. And we have had some good things happen. And we want to be able to use that strategy, not just with Trump. And I think it's the stepping stone to get the Libertarian Party into hopefully what eventually happens is one of the two parties dies and the LP or something like the LP fills that gap. But we're not going to get there. That there's a couple more steps. And I think that the only thing that I can think of is this sort of, this leverage strategy to try to force them to cater to us. And if they don't, then we spoil them. But
I think that they will, especially like you have the libertarians who can be the actionable arm, at least in part, of the Bitcoin community and other communities that you mentioned. But now that the politicians got the message that the Bitcoin people have money and they are speaking to us through the Libertarian Party or whoever those representatives are, they will come to understand things very quickly. I mean, you can see like 50 different politicians being like, Bitcoin is so cool. We love innovation. Like they didn't care about innovation like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Or 3 years ago, right? They just were like discovered that innovation was good this year.
Yeah. So if you're a Bitcoin person, you want to get involved, there's a web address on the screen there, takehumanaction.com. That'll get you signed up for a newsletter. And it will also, you put in there, hey, my name is Joe Smith from New Jersey, and it'll get you in touch with our Mises Caucus people in your state. So we've got state conventions coming up, which determine who are the delegates to the national convention in May in Grand Rapids, Michigan, over Memorial Day weekend. So if you're at all interested, there's still time to possibly become a delegate in most states. I think all of them technically at this point. So if you want to get involved, we'll get you involved. We will shield you from the weirdos in the LP if they're running your state, so we can take it over and put somebody good in. And next week's show, I will announce who's going to be on here soon. That will have some bearing on our Grand Rapids strategy. We'll be talking to him next week. But if you want to get interested, you want to find out more, takehumanaction.com, and I'll also put my email address up there. I'll switch that out. You can talk to me direct. It's just Aaron, AARON, at misescaucus.com. You can email me direct and I'll get you plugged in. If you want to contribute, we take Bitcoin. Just go to lpmisescaucus.com and there's the donate link on there. Or just email me and we'll facilitate that. But we really didn't get much into like the broader what else is going on in the Bitcoin and the legal world. And if you'd be up for it, maybe in a couple of months, maybe I'll get you and another Bitcoin expert and let you guys talk and educate us more on what's going on. And would you be open to that?
Absolutely. That'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on and the hard work you're doing. And hopefully we'll have some good news to share about Keone and Bill and others soon. We got to keep up the pressure. So look for that newsletter. I hope get it out tomorrow. So you can sign that petition if you guys missed the URL earlier. Anything else you want to plug? Tell us that you're working on. I think that just put a bow on
I can
things.
give you my I can give you my Twitter if people want to pay attention to what I'm working on and what I'm doing.
Sure.
See if I send that to you. Could you put it on the screen?
Yeah. Can you send it in the private chat thing? Do you see that?
Yes. 1 second here.
What, if you don't mind saying, what part of the country are you in?
I live in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm from New York originally, though.
I was going to say, did you grow up there, or like a lot of people?
No. I'm from New York. I'm from Long Island.
Okay.
But I've been out of New York a long time and very happy to be here.
Yeah, my wife's from Staten Island. I don't think she ever thought she would end up in Knox County, Tennessee. But yeah, we love it down here. So, did it go on? Let me put that back up. Oh, for some reason there was a timer on there. So deliver, and then the number 8 TOR. So deliver 8 or okay.
Deliverator. It's a Snow Crash reference to Deliverator, science fiction.
Okay, I actually read that like 20 years ago.
The pizza delivery driver.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Right. Well, I'll put that in the newsletter too, so people can. I'll I'll put that in there so people can follow you. But I really appreciate it. Keep up the great work.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Anything else we need to know about to get the news out? Please let me know, and I'll tell our people, and we'll have you back on in a couple months. Okay.
Okay, will do. Have a great night.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Rafael. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.